And I'm excited to see how Raghav is going to use them, and possibly also that Glurgeist, to get through the Pokemon that Marco is bringing, because again, the Dracovish and the Conkeldurr were such an incredible pair for Marco in his top 8 match. Seeing them side by side together on the field, the Dracovish having that fast rock slide, the Conkeldurr being the slow bulk that really was the center of his team, just was a really fun strategy to watch play out.
And that Duraludon as well from Marco ended up having such a heavy hand and really enabling the Dracovish as well as the Conkeldurr to dish out big damage, whether it was making sure that there were going to be attack drops on the opposing Pokemon, attack boosts on their side, or just making sure the special defense drops happened. I think there was a lot that was really pivotal, but let's take a look at that team a little bit further and some of Marco's accomplishments. Remember, they're coming in with the top 16 from the Latin American International Championships earlier this year from our previous format, and has already made some massive waves with that Dracovish on this team, as well as that Sylveon, that Conkeldurr, and that incredible core. And on the other side, we have Raghav Malaviya, who actually with this top 4 finish, at least, has that stipend in tow for Berlin, so congratulations to them. They're going to be playing more Pokemon very shortly too.
I know, but the temptation to turn that travel stipend into a travel award must be there for Raghav. Feels pretty great to lock in your opportunity to attend the European International Championships in just a couple of months, but more importantly, he's currently here in Australia on this stage playing for that title of finalist and/or champion. So, you know, one tournament is currently in front of him, and I'm sure once, you know, the matches play out, the dust settles, he'll be able to look forward. But for now, he certainly has an incredible opponent to face in Marco.
Right, and when I got a chance to talk to Raghav during that post-game interview a couple of series ago, Raghav wasn't super confident going against Marco because they played in Swiss before, and Marco got a very good win against Raghav. So I'm not sure how Raghav is going to be approaching this particular set, but I'm hoping that there's a little bit of more confidence knowing that they did make that top 4 and do have that travel award.
And I love how the players locked in so quickly to the Pokemon that they're bringing into this game. It's almost confirmation that they have thought about that matchup from Swiss. You know, they are, maybe this has been something that's been eating at them, you know, both of them since they played.
Probably want that rematch.
Yeah, they want the rematch. You want the opportunity to, you know, look at your past mistakes or maybe your past misplays, or maybe even take in information that you didn't simply know in the first couple of games when you guys faced off, and use that to your advantage this time around.
Well, here's something that's very, very similar to what we saw between Marco and even their opponent of Eric. You have the Duraludon here, which is going to be Dynamaxing again, and Raghav has the Excadrill on their side. So I am curious to see whether or not we are going to see a turn 1 Dynamax from Raghav as well, just to match this Dynamax that has to come out from the Duraludon in the beginning. But it doesn't look like we're going to. Togekiss going for a follow me in the face of this Dynamax Duraludon, and Whimsicott is going to be using the fake tears, which is going to connect with the Togekiss. So special defense harshly going to fall here, while Excadrill goes for a Sword Stance, being able to boost its attack and make sure that it can get off some powerful moves.
And that's a move that would not have been available to Raghav if he had gone for the Dynamax that turn. He may unfortunately lose this Togekiss to the Max Steel Spike here, but he has the opportunity to go for the Dynamax next turn on that Excadrill and deal some big damage immediately.
Definitely needed a bit of a setup turn here. Unfortunately, the Togekiss and the Follow Me, after it has eaten those fake tears, will go down. But this does mean a free switch in for Raghav, and anything in the back, particularly that Tyranitar, might really help this Excadrill, especially with that Sandstream activated.
Yeah, with the sand on the field, even if the Whimsicott goes for the Tailwind to try and offset the difference in speed between the Duraludon and the Excadrill, it will not be enough. Excadrill will still have the advantage and still be able to attack first. I think it's great that Marco used the Max Steel Spike to not only knock out that Togekiss, but also get a defense boost. But it's going to be a tough couple of turns for this Duraludon, because this Excadrill is ready and primed to go on the offensive thanks to the Dynamax factor.
And Dynamax factor, it will be Excadrill going to receive that Dynamax energy and will be larger than life now on the battlefield. And I definitely am looking forward to seeing what this Excadrill decides to do for this turn because of that Sword Stance. We're about to find out here as The first move with that Prankster ability is going to be that Whimsicott going for the Tailwind. Tailwind allowing a chance potentially for this speed to catch up, but no, with that Sand Rush ability, this Excadrill is going to do a massive amount of damage to that Duraludon, but Duraludon is still capable of hanging on.
I like the Whimsicott using Tailwind this turn. I don't think it matters as much right now, but once this Duraludon or the Whimsicott have been removed from the field, Dracovish and Conkeldurr, or maybe even that Sylveon, will certainly be better off for it.
Max Wormwind going to drop the attack of both the Gourgeist as well as the Excadrill, but Whimsicott and Gourgeist going to be taking a bit of damage from that Sandstream that was activated.
You have to wonder why Raghav decided to bring Gourgeist to this battle. You know, it does get access to Seed Bomb, which could do some nice damage to that Dracovish, but overall would really struggle to damage the Whimsicott or the Duraludon or maybe even that Conkeldurr. I think that Raghav wants to have the option of Trick Room for when Sand or the Excadrill are removed from the field so that he could still be faster than something like the Dracovish.
I would agree with that, but Max Steel Spike, Whimsicott's Focus Sash, if it was carrying that, is going to be broken here, and that's going to be a clean knockout from that Max Steel Spike. But more importantly, the defense is going to raise for both of these Pokemon. Even with the attack drop, I think that was really important, but attack drop is going to happen again because Max Wormwind from this Duraludon, this time targeting down that Gourgeist, is going to drop the attack for both of these Pokemon.
I like targeting the Gourgeist there by Marco because Gourgeist is a Pokemon that you can't really leave on the field. Looking at the Trick Room here, I think that it's an interesting play knowing that the Excadrill is still on the field, but Duraludon is at such low health, and you know, with all the attack drops and the defense boosts and all that fun stuff, there's only so much damage that can really be played at this point in time by both these Pokemon, especially now that they're returning to their original, or at least the Duraludon is returning to its original size because the Dynamax wore down. So Raghav just accepting the fact that he might have to let this Excadrill get KO'd, especially to something like the Conkeldurr, who is now faster because of Trick Room, but hoping that whatever other Pokemon he has in the back of his party will be enough to either power through the Conkeldurr or underspeed something like the Dracovish later on once the Duraludon has been removed from the field. Conkeldurr, though, is still relatively unthreatened, and we haven't seen Raghav bring an answer for it other than the Togekiss, which has already been knocked out.
Not super threatened, but is going to go for, well, this is actually very interesting.
That is
the ghost
amazing.
type effect getting added to the Excadrill will get rid of that ability from the Duraludon, which was the body press. Oh my goodness.
So now that Excadrill is a ground, a steel, and a ghost type Pokemon, fighting type moves can no longer connect with that Excadrill. So this Conkeldurr can no longer use those fighting type attacks, the drain punches, the mock punches, the body presses to deal big damage to that Excadrill. And this is the kind of situation where you're okay if Excadrill is out on the field in the sand under Trick Room because there's only so much your opponent can do to damage it at this point in time.
That side trick or treat was definitely a treat.
So much fun. It was definitely a treat and not a trick.
No, but Gourgeist is now going to go for the Phantom Force. It's had enough of being on the field for at least this moment. It will avoid the Ice Punch, but this Excadrill not going to avoid the Draco Meteor, so it is going to have to take that at full force from this Duraludon, but it's not super effective here.
No, and Duraludon, I think, really prefers to use something like the Draco Meteor, especially if it's more bulky, which this Duraludon appears to be. For the Max Wormwind, you know, you don't want to be using it to deal damage to something like an Excadrill, but again, because of that added ghost type, that was really Duraludon's best option. So Raghav maybe revealing a strategy that he didn't play with earlier on in Swiss when he faced off against Marco. A lot of times when you think about the board position and think about how you can use moves on your side of the field to target your own Pokemon, you don't think of something like Trick or Treat to benefit a Pokemon like Excadrill. It's something that most definitely caught Marco off guard, and he's going to have to find a way to, you know, hit this Excadrill for damage if he wants to go ahead and win this game. Fortunately, Dracovish, you know, there is no Pokemon with Storm Drain on the field like we saw last time with Dracovish. So it can go for those water type attacks into Excadrill, but it might have the opportunity to move first, and Excadrill might be able to do enough damage to pick up the KO regardless.
Well, Dracofish using Vicious Rend into the Excadrill means that it's not going to get a chance to fire off an attack just yet, because it will be going last since the Trick Room is still active.
Yeah, that's great information though for Raghav, because knowing that your Excadrill in the sand does outspeed Dracofish is something really important. It's possible that he also knew that as well, coming off from a previous game, but it's tough to say. I really am liking this board state though for both these trainers going into these final couple of turns, because even though, you know, Raghav and Marco are down to their last two Pokemon, on paper, the Conkeldurr and the Dracovish just have more offensive momentum, especially knowing that the Dracovish is going to be going for those Vicious Rends. So if I were in Raghav's position right now, I think the best thing you can do with Gourgeist is go for something like the Phantom Force. You know, you have about enough health to survive another turn of sand damage, and then hope that the Tyranitar can flinch or otherwise knock out that Dracovish. Let the burn knock out the Conkeldurr, and then just hope for the best.
Well,
it's a very, very close game.
Mach Punch first. It does get a clean knockout. So this was a very close game, but now the offensive pressure that we were really hoping for is no longer there. Another trick or treat, though, for the second time in this game. So the Ghost type getting added to Dracofish, but Vicious Rend will be enough to get that last tiny little bit of HP.
Wait, well, not exactly.
Well,
I mean,
the Sandstorm
sand will
with
knock
the
it
sand.
out, but the fact that the Gourgeist was able to take that attack, you know, the Gourgeist was able to move first, which is really the key thing when going and calculating the damage that Vicious Rend does. Just having that trick him up on the field did give Gourgeist an opportunity. Unfortunately for Raghav, having the sand up because he had to force that Tyranitar back out on the field meant that it just wasn't enough. I think that he did a really good job piloting that matchup. I loved his use of Trick Room. I just think that Conkeldurr on Marco's side of the field benefits from Trick Room far too much, and without Togekiss, Raghav had no real answer to it. You know, he did an amazing job of using that side Trick or Treat on his own Excadrill to give him an opportunity, you know, to open up that door. But because Conkeldurr has Ice Punch, and because there was just too much damage on the field otherwise, and he couldn't deal that damage back to Conkeldurr quick enough, it was just a really tough spot for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm specifically looking, though, at the fact that Raghav knew that there was some type of fighting move on the Duraludon because we saw the Max Knuckle come out from a series before.
Yeah.
But we just didn't know what that move was because we only saw that utilized when it was in its Dynamax form. So it's really interesting now that we know that it's a body press. And I really like that kind of information is out there. Raghav can use that to kind of come back in the series, figure out maybe how they can push out a little bit more offensive pressure, because Excadrill by itself, I don't know, was quite enough, especially when you had that Conkeldurr facing up against that Tyranitar.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that Raghav invested so heavily in that Excadrill, even knowing that if the Conkeldurr was in the back of Marco's party, it was going to be a very rough time. I like that he led the Togekiss alongside the Excadrill. I think that is a classic lead, but in this case, I think you do have to make the adaptation here. I think you do have to go for the Tyranitar and the Excadrill, because then at least, again, Togekiss is safe, presumably in the back of your party, and can make an appearance once Conkeldurr is out on the field.
Let's see if that's what's in the back, but right now, this is what's in the front. Tyranitar and Excadrill, and it's going to be a turn 1 Dynamax.
No Sword Stance.
No Sword Stance. May not feel like they need it. Probably wants to get the raw damage off onto the Duraludon, or potentially even the Whimsicott, just to see if they can get the knockout, because when we saw the amount of just raw damage that came out from the Max Steel Spike into the Whimsicott at first, potentially will bring it down to its Focus Sash, and then the sand can clean up the knockout.
Yeah, Tyranitar is present as well, and Rock Slide, while it may be a little bit too slow to be fishing for flinches right now, it would be able to connect with that Whimsicott and possibly pick up the KO after another attack from that Excadrill as well. But Duraludon does have a prime opportunity here to go for a Steel Spike of its own, or maybe even a Wormwind to lower the attack of the Pokemon. But given the target of that Fake Tears, I think Marco's going to be fishing for a KO onto that Excadrill.
We'll see. But right now, Raghav is looking at getting some big damage onto that Dynamax Duraludon. Will, you know, show that animation again about that special defense getting boosted. But we have the Max Wormwind now, which is a very classic play here coming out from Marco. This is almost like expected at this point, where Marco's really looking to try to get those drops.
It's interesting. It's an interesting strategy knowing that the Dracovish and the Conkeldurr seem to be
Oh,
the core
superpower.
of his strategy. Going for these drops on the Excadrill, I think, is sort of making the assumption that Raghav will continue to play where this Excadrill is the core of his strategy. If I'm able to get enough attack drops up on it, then I don't necessarily have to worry about the damage output of my Duraludon, because when my Conkeldurr shows up, when my Dracovish shows up, you know, they will be able to do the damage to pick up that KO, and Excadrill won't be able to KO them, even though it will be faster because of the sand.
Whimsicott's going to use Tailwind, trying to ensure that the speed is a little bit more even, but we already know that Excadrill gets a chance to move first, and with that, Whimsicott, even with the attack drop, that's a clean knockout as well. And I think Raghav is hoping that Tyranitar sticks around long enough, even with that attack drop, to finish off that Duraludon.
I think it should. It really is going to depend on the targeting here, but again, looking at how Marco's playing, looking how he's prioritizing these attack drops rather than going for the KO moves onto Raghav's Pokemon, you know, I think that it's very, very interesting that Raghav went for the double KO onto the Whimsicott and the Duraludon. Because look at the board state. Tailwind got up, Whimsicott got out of the way. That's what Whimsicott loves to do when setting up Tailwind. Duraludon got 2 attack drops on both his Tyranitar and his Excadrill, and is now moving out of the way. It's unfortunate that Marco is down to his last 2 Pokemon here, but assuming he brought that Dracovish and that Conkeldurr again, you know, this is the perfect opportunity for them to take the field.
Yeah.
If Raghav wants to go on the offensive with the Tyranitar, he has to switch it out to get rid of those attack drops. Excadrill, he has to switch it out, give up the last turn of the Dynamax factor, and again, get rid of those attack drops and then bring it back in later. So it's a very interesting pivot from what we saw in Game 1, and I think that Raghav almost helped Marco with picking up those knockouts there. I would have been curious if, I mean, obviously we couldn't have seen something like the Swords Dance from that Excadrill because it's already Dynamax, but if maybe Raghav could have pivoted a turn earlier to try and avoid setting this up for his opponent.
Well, Max Guard going to eat the Vicious Rend. Conkeldurr going for the Ice Punch into the Tyranitar. Interesting that it wasn't a fighting type move. That means that Tyranitar is able to fire back with a Crunch onto the Dracovish.
I think that Ice Punch was looking to put Tyranitar within KO range of a Mach Punch without potentially activating something like a weakness policy. So again, just really strong play from Marco here, identifying his win condition and not really giving Raghav an opening to try and even the score. This Dracovish, you know, we do know it has Choice Scarf. We do know that it is locked into Vicious Rend now, and if it's very possible that if the Gourgeist is in the back of Raghav's party, if it can find a way to try and get it out on the field, get Trick Room up on the field, you know, that might be an opening there, but there's still the Conkeldurr. Dracovish and Conkeldurr together are just so powerful.
Tyranitar going for Protect Dracovish. The Vicious Rend is going to connect with the Excadrill, so that is going to be a knockout. Tyranitar not going to be able to do too much this turn, and neither is Conkeldurr. Has to put the Ice Punch right into the Protect.
I like the Ice Punch there from the Conkeldurr as well, just because if Raghav had decided to switch out that Tyranitar for something like the Togekiss, that would have been a nice little surprise, extra bit of damage there. But again, I think Marco's just making sure that he's dealing that consistent damage that he needs to carry himself into the finals match tomorrow.
A little bit of extra damage, but here's the Gourgeist.
There is a Gourgeist, and to Tyranitar's benefit, it does outspeed and could potentially try and flinch that Conkeldurr with something like a Rock Slide, but to stop it from Ice Punching the Gourgeist. But if he does that, then the Dracovish can target it with a Vicious Rend. That'll probably pick up the KO at this point. Conkeldurr could also just decide to not do that and go for a Mach Punch, and there's still, I think Marco has a pretty clear path to victory here. You knock out the Gourgeist, you stop the Trick Room, and then hope for the best, but we'll see. It did take 2 hits to knock out that Gourgeist with a critical hit as well. So Tyranitar is the last Pokemon standing between Marco and the finals match tomorrow.
Sandstorm gonna subside, but this is a dire state. There is going to be one more Pokemon in the back. Tailwind is over. That is a very important point to note. Conkeldurr is going to be a lot slower now, and Togekiss gets a chance to come out in the field in the face of its greatest enemy, that Conkeldurr.
And now that Tailwind has expired, this Tyranitar should actually now be faster than that Conkeldurr. So, but because it is, it's going to be forced to protect to stop the Mach Punch, and there's just so much there's so much momentum inherently in this Dracovish and the Conkeldurr. You know, with that Tailwind support, with the priority support from the Conkeldurr, you know, I think that Raghav protecting Togekiss here is him hoping that he, or maybe just hoping that he can figure out what his opponent wants to do with this double protect so that next turn he can go ahead and turn around and stop it. Knowing that we saw the Mach Punch and the Vicious Rend targeting the Tyranitar and the Togekiss, if Togekiss has access to a Follow Me, you know, that'll certainly protect the Tyranitar. And Togekiss is at full health. It's probably able to take something like a Vicious Rend at least once. But then, how's Tyranitar going to pick up the KO? It's really interesting, and no Follow Me there either.
No Follow Me, but Togekiss is going to be the mark of both.
Wow.
The Dazzling Gleam.
If this picks up a crit on that Conkeldurr, that could be a knockout, but no critical hit, but it's going to be so close.
Tyranitar going for the superpower doesn't do enough.
But Raghav has access to protect on both of his Pokemon,
Yes,
and the burn damage would
would
be
be
enough to knock it out. So Raghav has found his way into a Game 3 here of this top 4 match.
That's incredible.
It came down to the wire.
Absolutely came down to the wire. Wow, what a play. We are going to be going to a Game 3. It's all tied up right now between Marco and Raghav.
And the fact that Raghav was able to stay calm and pilot that Togekiss incredibly well throughout those last couple of turns. The double protect not only giving him an indication of what moves Marco was going to be targeting, because if that Conkeldurr went for something like an Ice Punch, that would have definitely been a knockout that turn. Gave him another turn of burn damage, which meant that when it was the 2v1 in that final situation, all he had to do was double protect, and then that was it. He was guaranteed the win. I am really curious to see how this is going to play out now in Game 3, just because that did get so close. Raghav, I think, made the perfect adjustment from Game 1. You know, he kept that Togekiss safe until the last possible moment, and Marco, you know, I think that the Mach Punch was wise there. You know, he needed it to outspeed that Togekiss, but knowing that if the Dazzling Gleam doesn't crit, his Conkeldurr can survive that attack. You know, I think that's really going to be the sort of gamble that this is going to come down to. Or maybe a dice roll would be the better way to phrase it. You know, is my opponent going to go for the Dazzling Gleam? Is it going to crit? And if it doesn't crit, can I get an Ice Punch? So incredibly close. And that kind of, you know, wire is literally the line between top 4 and a finalist here in Oceania.
It's a fine line.
It's a very fine line.
It's a very fine line, and we're already seeing yet another adjustment here coming out from Marco. Doesn't bring the Duraludon this time at the very front, but instead the Dracovish. But this might be a problem because Raghav still has that fast Excadrill on the field.
But think about what the Duraludon did for Marco in the past 2 games. Duraludon was essentially there to disrupt Raghav, whereas Dracovish is there to go immediately on the offensive. And when you have a Pokemon like Whimsicott by your side, you can get that Tailwind up, and we already know from the past game that is enough to outspeed the Excadrill.
Really fast. Brings it right down to its Focus Sash. So Excadrill going to be able to get off one more attack. It's going to be the Iron Head right into the Whimsicott, which also brings it down to its Focus Sash. But one of those has an immunity to the Sandstorm, and the other does not.
But again, this is another situation where the Whimsicott gets Tailwind up and then is immediately removed from the field. Another adjustment that Marco might have made would have been the Sylveon over that Duraludon. We don't know that he's brought it in the back necessarily. And if he sends out the Conkeldurr now, you know, this is a difficult spot for Raghav. Mach Punch will knock out that Excadrill. You know, a Vicious Rend is going to do a huge amount of damage to that Tyranitar. We've only seen Raghav go for the Dynamax on that Excadrill. You know, this is a really tough turn for Raghav, and I think that saving that Tyranitar for later and revealing an adjustment of his own is huge.
This is huge. We have the Milotic in the back. What an impressive turn 0 and turn 1 for Marco, though, and they will be able to get the knockout onto the Excadrill, securing that, and the Vicious Rend now having to go into the Milotic. It still does so much damage.
Dracovish is absolutely insane when it comes to that. But Milotic does have access to recovery. You know, it's holding leftovers. It does also potentially know the move Recover, which could come into play here, but that Milotic is still slower than the Dracovish. And there's only one Pokemon that Raghav has revealed to have speed control on his team, and that is going to be the Vorgeist, which he didn't bring. So this Togekiss now is forced to either protect the Milotic or maybe even consider Dynamaxing itself so it can try and deal some big damage to that Conkeldurr to knock it out. Raghav, unfortunately, just lost so much momentum with the simple switch of the Dracovish for the Duraludon as a lead from Marco.
Yeah, the Dracovish was an enormous lead, and now we're going to get a chance to see some Dynamax.
Some enormous Pokemon.
Some enormous Pokemon. Yeah, enormous leads, enormous Pokemon. Here in the top 4, and Conkeldurr is going to be the one that actually receives the Dynamax factor this time.
And I like that you go for the Dynamax here with Conkeldurr. When you switch Vicious Rend into Max Geyser, you lose the effect of the move that actually doubles the damage. So that is a smart pick there. Not only just because this Conkeldurr is so insanely powerful against most of the Pokemon on Raghav's teams, barring his Dynamax Pokemon in that Togekiss.
That is going to be that Togekiss. So a Dynamax versus Dynamax here on the field.
Two big Pokemon.
Two very big Pokemon. It's time to see some moves. Vicious Rend going into the Togekiss. Look at how much damage that does. You definitely would have wanted to Dynamax here because the additional health and a Max Hailstorm just from the Ice Punch.
Oh,
look at how low it takes it, but it does survive.
It will have one opportunity to attack before the Hail will knock it out at the end of this turn.
Well, going for the Hypnosis. Dracovish avoids it. Togekiss going for the Max Starfall. Right into the Conkeldurr. Does do a significant chunk of damage, but oh my goodness.
That Hypnosis, if it had landed against that Dracovish, that would have been absolutely huge. But unfortunately for Raghav, he hasn't had the opportunity to go for Coil to raise his accuracy. There is no gravity on the field, and that is just one of those moves you have to make. And he's given himself a little bit of an opening here, but that Dracovish is still going to be faster than the Tyranitar and the Milotic. Plus, you also have that Dynamax Conkeldurr to worry about. Maybe Raghav can find a way to knock out one of these Pokemon before, his Milotic or that Tyranitar is knocked out. But it is a uphill battle for Raghav to make his way towards finals.
It is going to be a bit of an uphill battle, but the good news is that the Sandstream is going to reset the weather, so you don't have to deal with the Hailstorm anymore.
Yeah, I think that's mostly to the benefit of Tyranitar, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's for the Tyranitar.
A little bit of special defense might be nice, depending on what Marco's last Pokemon is, but we need to find a way to reveal that Pokemon first.
Tyranitar protecting, just playing it really, really safe as Dracovish goes for the Vicious Rend right into the Protect. And Conkeldurr going for the Max Knuckle. It is going to connect with the Milotic, and it does get enough to secure the knockout.
And that attack boost as well will almost guarantee the knockout on that Tyranitar between the Dracovish and the Conkeldurr next turn.
Yeah, what a fantastic series between these players. I mean, I can't stress enough how real heads up that both of these players have decided to kind of attack this game and attack this series.
It was so incredibly close. And for Raghav to go from what you described as a very rough matchup in Swiss to bring it all the way to Game 3 here in Top 4 is just an incredible sort of synthesis of knowledge. It's really hard